as expected today in terms of turnout, the media. You kind of joked about it earlier, but just in terms of getting across what you wanted to get across today.
Yeah, I mean, it's usually pretty smooth in here until something goes wrong, and then you guys all like to show up. No, I think today was procedural to get through. It was an unprecedented action that night, not in just what happened, but to take the whole person, hold it until you figure out what's going on. But the good news is we have a regulation for that because it is such a substantial withholding that we're to get into a hearing room as fast as we possibly can, gather some additional information, which we did, look at some past practice, which we discussed today, and make sure we're following the law and following the regulation. So the commission could have very easily today withheld the whole amount. I think it was appropriate to release half of the amount. You know, I don't think that the public should take what we did today as any indication on what the final outcome will be, because I don't think we're even to the point yet where we have filed the complaints. We don't have all of the AG's information and all of the Attorney General's evidence that's still coming in. So I wouldn't read anything into what was done today. I just wanted to make it clear for the record, not just because this is a very unprecedented action that we follow the law to the T, but it's also, I think, for the public to understand exactly what we're doing, why we're doing what we're doing. But again, I would not read anything into this as what the final actions would be for either fighter.
Chairman, obviously you're collecting evidence. At this point, the world has seen the video, right? So I wonder, why the delay till December? I think a lot of people were hoping there would be some resolution today. Why the delay till December?
I want to deal with the whole scope. I think it's pretty easy to see what happened with Khabib and Conor. That kind of self-explanatory. As you know, we had a lot of other people that thought that they wanted to participate that night. Some of them are under the Nevada State Athletic Commission jurisdiction. Some of them are under the Metropolitan Police Department and the Clark County District Attorney jurisdiction. It's very unprecedented to jump into a cage and start hitting a fighter when you're not a fighter or in the contest itself. So a lot of that evidence and gathering that evidence and film that you are seeing and the public is seeing is pretty obvious in of itself, but there's a lot of film that we are reviewing that you are not seeing. You know, the entire T-Mobile arena, how certain people got in, how certain people got out, where certain people went, if certain people are still in the country, if they're not. There's a lot going on that the public's probably not aware of. And my job is to make sure the full scope, when all the complaints are filed, it's a full scope. And then we need to give the defendants enough time per statute and per law to hire representation, go through the complaint, work that public process that needs to take place. I would have very much liked to have it done by November on the November hearing, but it just didn't work out that way on timing. So I think, and if you look at past practice for us, to go from an October 6th event, 6th event, to a December hearing is lightning fast, especially with everything that we're dealing with here, because it's not just a simple drug case, and even those take longer.
Chairman, you pointed out that had you had all the video available to you, you would have held Mr. McGregor's purse that night. Can you elaborate a little bit on kind of what you mean by that, what it was you saw that would have led you to that?
Well, I think that Conor's obviously, the action started with Khabib, and Conor was reacting to the action. So understood, but he also was on top of the cage, and he initiated the first punch against somebody from Khabib's corner. He didn't have to do that. And thank God Chavez got him and pulled him back down to the cage, or this would have been a whole lot worse than it was for both of them and everything else. Who knows what would have happened. I'm really happy that we have, an ex-defensive lineman from a big-time football school that grabbed him, or we would have had a lot more problems. So we just didn't have that footage at the time.
Other fighters were also involved in the situation, in the brawl. Some other fighters from the UFC. Are you guys gonna take any action against those guys as well?
Anybody that was licensed by the Nevada State Athletic Commission that was involved will have action brought against them. So yes.
In December, I'm sorry if I didn't catch this earlier, but the purse amount that you withheld from Nurmagomedov, you can determine then whether or not you're going to hold like 20% or release more of it to him, in other words.
Yeah, the final action for both fighters' purses, in this case, the releasing of some portion or none of Nurmagomedov's, and any action that would be brought against Conor McGregor, in which he would have to, pay that. So it's all still up in the air. And like I said, I think it's really important that the public understand that what happened today has nothing to do with that hearing and what the final action will be. It's just where I, as chairman, and I think our commission is comfortable that this is a substantial amount of money to release so he can pay bills and go about his life, but it's also a substantial amount enough money to compel him to show up and go through the proper hearing, and we'll see where the commission falls out.
Mr. McGregor has appeared before the commission before. Will that have any bearing on what happens in December, or is this viewed as kind of an incident unto itself?
No, I think that they're different issues. The commission may see it different, though. I'm just one of five. So the commission may look at past practice. I believe the biggest issues that Conor's had are really out of our jurisdiction. You know, the New York issue is, I'm assuming, the one you're referring to. That's not something that we can get involved with. You know, that's his issue there, but not his issue here.
But he did have the issue here in Las Vegas as well with the press conference incident.
Yep. Well, we'll get to all that.
Sure, the fighters that you said that they were not, for example, if they were not licensed by Nevada, if they apply for a license here in the future, are you guys going to look into that as well?
Well, you've got a couple of different things. You have fighters that were licensed in Nevada. You have corners that were licensed by Nevada. And then you have fighters that were in other corners that were not licensed as fighters, but they were licensed as corners. So the right way to state it is anybody who had a license, regardless of their role, is going to be involved in this hearing.
But are you going to, in the future, if they apply for a license, will this hinder that possibly?
It's all on the table, absolutely. I can't say what will happen, but anybody who had a license, whether they were a fighter, a corner, a manager, if they were involved, they will have a hearing, and at that hearing, that will be decided what that will be. I can't tell you what that will be. It could.
If they didn't have a license and they apply in the future for a license, could this affect that?
I don't believe we have that situation right now. So, but yes, it could. Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman.
Just to clarify, Commissioner, you want Conor and Khabib to be here in person in December, right?
They will be here in person. If they want to fight here again, they'll be here in person.